Hello, this is Sarah. I'm going to read you Arya's story today, which goes like this. You're too toxic, my sister said. Leave. So I walked away silently. She contacted in a panic a week later. Why did I get an eviction notice? I responded, toxic people do not allow their sisters to live rent-free in their apartments. All right, let's leave. Arya is my name. I am a 33-year-old dentist who practices in a private clinic. Quite a typical life, isn't it? I'm still making mortgage payments on my flat. Good work, the same old routine. But where can I even begin with my family, man? When I was 12, my father passed away. Heart attack, absolutely out of nowhere. Mom was devastated, obviously. But life goes on, and 2 years later, when I was 14, she married this guy named Robert. He had a 9-year-old daughter, Emma, from his previous marriage. When they got married, Robert and Emma moved into our house, the one that belonged to my dad. It was weird at first, suddenly having new people in Dad's space, but I tried to make it work. Emma was just a kid, and honestly, she was pretty cool. We played video games together. I helped her with homework sometimes. Robert tried to be a good stepdad, too. He'd come to my school events. We'd do family barbecues, the whole thing. Growing up with them was fine, not amazing, not terrible, just fine. We celebrated holidays together, took some family trips. Emma and I got along most of the time, though she could be annoying like any little sister. Robert never tried to replace my dad, which I appreciated. He had his own way of doing things, but he wasn't mean or anything. After high school, I went to medical school to become a dentist. That's when I started pulling away from the family a bit, not on purpose, really, just busy with studies, internships, starting my career. By the time I graduated and got my job at the clinic, I was living my own life. I'd see them on Christmas, Thanksgiving, maybe Easter. We'd text sometimes or chat on Facebook, but that was about it. Emma grew up too, obviously. Last I really talked to her regularly, she was in college studying business or something. We weren't close anymore, but there was no drama or anything. Then last year, my grandmother died, Dad's mom. She was 89, lived a good life, but it still hit me hard. She was the last real connection I had to my dad. The funeral was rough. Mom, Robert, and Emma all came, which was nice of them. We hadn't all been in the same room for maybe 2 years before that. After the service, the lawyer read Grandma's will. Most of it was pretty standard stuff. Some money divided up, her jewelry to various family members. But then he got to the big thing. She left me her apartment. It was this modest 2-bedroom place in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy but solid. I was shocked. I mean, I knew Grandma loved me, but I had no idea she was planning this. The apartment was probably worth like $250,000, maybe more, not a fortune, but definitely not pocket change either. After we left the lawyer's office, we all went to grab coffee. That's when I mentioned my plan. I'm thinking I'll rent out Grandma's place, I said, stirring sugar into my latte. The rental income could help me pay down my mortgage faster. Mom and Robert exchanged this look, you know, the kind, that married couple telepathy thing where they're having a whole conversation with their eyes. Actually, honey, Mom said, leaning forward, we wanted to talk to you about that. Emma, who'd been quiet up until then, suddenly perked up. I've been seeing someone. His name's Jake. We've been together for 2 years now. 2 years? I had no clue. Shows how out of touch I'd become with my family. That's great, I said, though I was confused why she was bringing this up. Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. The thing is, they need somewhere to live. Jake's lease is up next month, and Emma's been living in that tiny studio apartment. Your grandmother's place would be perfect for them. And there it was, the ask I should have seen coming. You want them to live there instead of me renting it out? I asked. Just temporarily, Emma said quickly, until we get on our feet financially. Maybe save up for our own place. I looked around the table at their hopeful faces. These were my family. Emma was my sister, even if we weren't blood related. And it wasn't like I needed the apartment to live in, I had my own place. I guess that could work, I said slowly. How long are we talking about? Maybe a year, Robert suggested. They could pay the utilities, take care of maintenance, that kind of thing. Okay, I said, They can live there, but just for a year, and you guys handle all the utilities and keep the place in good shape." Emma practically bounced in her seat. "Thank you so much, Arya. You're the best." Mom squeezed my hand. "This means so much to all of us." I smiled and nodded, but inside, I was already doing the math on how much longer it would take me to pay off my mortgage without that rental income. Oh well, family first, right? That's what Dad would have wanted. 2 weeks later, Emma and Jake moved into Grandma's apartment. I met Jake briefly when I dropped off the keys. Nice enough guy, worked in IT or something. They seemed happy together, and the place looked good. Emma had always been pretty neat. The months went by. I kept up with my mortgage payments using my regular salary from the dental practice. It was tighter than I'd hoped, but manageable. Emma and Jake seemed to be settling in well. I figured everything was working out fine, family helping family, everyone happy. So, a full year went by, and I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about the whole temporary thing. Life was busy, work was crazy, I was dealing with some difficult patients, and I was trying to save money where I could to make up for the lost rental income. Emma would text me occasionally with updates about the apartment. A leaky faucet here, a light bulb that needed changing there, normal stuff. Jake seemed handy enough to fix most things himself, which was good. They were keeping the place in decent shape, and they always paid the utilities on time. I was actually starting to think maybe this arrangement was working out okay. Sure, I was missing out on rental income, but at least I knew the apartment was being taken care of by family. And Emma seemed genuinely grateful whenever we talked. Then one Tuesday evening in March, my phone rang. Mom's name popped up on the screen. "Hey, Mom," I answered, stirring pasta sauce on my stove. "Hi, honey. We were wondering if you'd like to come over for dinner this weekend. Saturday around 6. "Sure, that sounds nice. Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself, though you know how much Robert loves that apple pie from Miller's Bakery." "I'll grab one on my way over." Saturday came around, and I stopped by Miller's Bakery like Mom suggested. When I pulled up to the house, I noticed more cars than usual in the driveway, Emma's Honda, Jake's truck, and another car I didn't recognize. I rang the doorbell, and Robert answered with a big smile. In the dining room, Mom, Robert, Emma, and Jake were all there, but so was an older couple I'd never met before. "These are my parents, Dave and Linda," Jake said, introducing them. I set the pie down on the table and took a seat. It felt a little weird having strangers at what I thought was going to be a family dinner, but whatever. The conversation started off normal enough. Robert told some dad jokes that made everyone groan. I shared a few funny stories from work about patients who came in with weird dental emergencies. Everyone laughed, and I was feeling pretty relaxed. But then, as we were finishing up the main course, I noticed Mom and Robert exchanging those looks again, the same kind they'd given each other at the coffee shop after Grandma's funeral. "So," Mom said, setting down her fork, "we actually did have a reason for asking you here tonight. We all have a small request for you." I raised an eyebrow. "All of you?" Emma leaned forward excitedly. Jake proposed. She held up her left hand with a ring on it. "Congratulations," I said. "When did this happen?" 2 weeks ago, Jake said, grinning. "We're thinking a wedding in about 6 months. That's wonderful. I'm really happy for you both." "Actually," Mom jumped in, "that's what we wanted to talk to you about. We need help with the wedding costs." Emma pulled out a folder from under the table. "Jake and I have been planning everything out, doing research, getting quotes. The total comes to about $80,000. I almost choked on the water I was sipping. $80,000 for one day? Everyone was staring at me with these hopeful expressions. "What exactly are you asking me?" I said. Emma bit her lip. "Well, you have a really good job, and you're doing well financially. We were hoping you could help us out." I looked at Emma. "I'm happy to help with your wedding, really. But $80,000 is insane. I could maybe contribute $20,000. That would be a very generous wedding gift." The mood in the room shifted instantly. Emma's face fell. Jake looked disappointed. His parents exchanged glances. Everyone fell silent and stared at me. Then Mom was slow to say, "Honey, you have a good job and a good income. You can easily give your sister that kind of money for the wedding." I felt my cheeks getting hot. I'm actually paying for my mortgage and I'm also saving money for my future. Emma snorted. What future? You don't even have a boyfriend, so you don't have any future. Everyone at the table laughed, not loudly, but unpleasantly. The sound made my stomach turn. I put down my fork. After words like that, I won't give you a cent at all for the wedding. If you want an expensive ceremony, save up your own money for it. Jake's parents waved their hands frantically. His mother, Linda, said, "You're behaving terribly, not like a sister at all." I turned to them. Fine, then you pay $80,000 for your son's wedding. They immediately backtracked. We're retired. We don't have that kind of money. I shrugged. Then let Emma and Jake live within their means and make a wedding based on their own income. Emma suddenly stood up from her chair. You know what? You're toxic, she said loudly. You're humiliating me financially and behaving arrogantly. We need to take a break from our relationship. You won't be invited to either the engagement party or the wedding. I looked at my parents, thinking they would pull Emma back, tell her she was being ridiculous. But Mom and Robert just nodded their heads. Robert said, "You're cutting yourself out of the family by refusing to help." I stared at them for a moment, then nodded slowly. I understand you perfectly, and I accept your decision. I grabbed my purse and stood up. Thanks for dinner. I walked out of that house and no one called out to me. Not one person tried to stop me or take back what they'd said. I got in my car and drove home in complete silence, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I got back to my apartment, I just sat on my couch, staring at the wall. My own family had just kicked me out over money I didn't even have to spare in the first place. The next morning, I woke up still feeling angry. I barely slept, replaying the whole dinner scene in my head over and over, the way they all laughed at me, the way my own mother just sat there and let Emma call me toxic, the way they acted like I owed them $80,000 just because I had a job. I made coffee and sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop. If they wanted to cut me out of the family, fine. But I wasn't going to keep subsidizing Emma's life while they treated me like garbage. I started doing some math. How much could I actually get for renting out Grandma's apartment? I pulled up rental listings in that neighborhood. Similar two-bedroom places were going for around $1,000 a month, maybe $1,200 if I fixed it up a little. $1,200 times 12 months, that was over $14,000 a year I'd been giving up. For what? So Emma could live rent-free while saving up for her ridiculous wedding. I was done with that. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Mr. Martinez. He was a lawyer who used to be one of my patients, nice guy, always paid his bills on time, and he'd given me his business card, saying if I ever needed legal help to give him a call. Mr. Martinez, this is Arya, your dentist. You said to call if I ever needed legal advice. Of course. What can I help you with? I need to evict someone from a property I own. My stepsister has been living there, but there's no lease agreement or anything official. A family situation, something like that. Can we meet? Sure. How about tomorrow afternoon at your office? The next day, I drove to Mr. Martinez's office. It was in one of those professional buildings downtown, all glass and steel. His secretary offered me coffee while I waited. So, tell me about the situation, Mr. Martinez said once we were in his office. I explained everything, how I'd inherited the apartment, how my family convinced me to let Emma live there temporarily, how that temporary arrangement had turned into over a year of free housing. And now you want them out? Yes. They made it very clear I'm not family anymore. So why should I keep giving them free housing? Mr. Martinez nodded. You absolutely have the right to evict them. Since there's no lease agreement, they're essentially tenants at will. You just need to give them proper notice. How long in this state? 30 days for a month-to-month tenancy situation like this. Perfect. We drafted up an eviction notice right there in his office. It was pretty straightforward. 30 days to vacate the premises, signed and dated. Mr. Martinez explained that I needed to send it certified mail to make it official. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in months. On the way home, I stopped at the post office and sent the eviction notice certified mail to Grandma's apartment. Emma and Jake would have it by Wednesday. For the next 3 days, I went about my normal routine: work, gym, groceries, Netflix. I kept my phone on silent most of the time. I wasn't ready to deal with whatever explosion was coming. On Thursday afternoon, my phone started buzzing like crazy. Emma was calling. I smiled and let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. By the time I got home from work, I had 17 missed calls from her. Then Mom started calling. Then Robert. My voicemail was full of increasingly panicked messages. Arya, call me back right now. What is this eviction notice? Honey, you can't be serious about this. Call us. We need to talk. This is getting out of hand. I deleted all the messages without listening to them completely. Let them panic for a while, see how it felt to be ignored. The calls and texts continued for 2 more days. I went to work, came home, lived my life. My phone kept buzzing, but I didn't care anymore. Finally, Friday evening after work, I was sitting on my couch eating takeout Chinese food when Emma called again. This time I answered. What? I said. Arya, thank God you picked up. What the hell is this eviction notice supposed to mean? It means you have 30 days to get out of my apartment. Are you insane? You can't just kick us out. Actually, I can. I checked with a lawyer. It's my apartment. Emma, you called me toxic and said you needed a break from our relationship. Well, toxic people don't let their sisters live in their apartments for free. I was just upset. You know I didn't mean it. No, I think you meant every word. You all showed me exactly what you think of me. Emma's voice got higher and more desperate. You can't do this to us. Where are we supposed to live? We don't have money saved up for a deposit and first month's rent somewhere else. That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. Arya, please. I'm sorry, okay? We all said things we shouldn't have said. Can't we just forget about it? 30 days, Emma. After that, I'm calling the police if you're still there. I hung up. The weekend was blissfully quiet. My phone rang a few times, but I turned off the ringer. I cleaned my apartment, did some meal prep, caught up on laundry, normal life stuff that felt amazing after all the family drama. Monday morning, I was getting ready for work when my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw all of them standing there. Mom, Robert, Emma, and Jake. They looked like they'd barely slept. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. We need to talk, Mom said. About what? All of this, Robert gestured vaguely. Everyone's been behaving inappropriately lately. We all need to calm down and solve this problem. Emma stepped forward. I thought about it, and I decided to accept your offer. What offer? The $20,000. I'll take it. We can put all this behind us. You can come to the wedding, and Jake and I will stay in the apartment. I stared at her for a long moment, then started laughing. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. I laughed until tears came out of my eyes. Are you out of your minds? I finally managed to say. They all just stood there, looking confused. Let me get this straight, I said, wiping my eyes. You invite me to dinner under false pretenses. You ambush me with strangers and demand $80,000. When I offer $20,000, you mock me and call me toxic. You uninvite me from your wedding and tell me I'm not family anymore. And now you think you can show up at my door and I'll just hand over 20 grand and let you keep living rent-free. More silence. You people showed me who you really are. And I don't want anything to do with any of you anymore. Emma, you have 3 weeks left. I suggest you start looking for somewhere else to live. Arya, please, Mom started. No, get out of my apartment. And Emma, get out of my other apartment. I closed the door in their faces and locked it. Through the peephole, I watched them stand there for a few more minutes before finally walking away. The final 3 weeks went by surprisingly peacefully. Emma and Jake stopped calling me. My parents stopped texting. I guess they finally got the message that I wasn't going to change my mind. I used that time to get everything ready for new tenants. I contacted a few contractors to get quotes on some minor repairs and painting. The apartment was in decent shape, but it could use some freshening up to get top rental price. The day before the eviction deadline, I drove over to Grandma's apartment with Mr. Martinez. I'd asked him to come with me just in case things got ugly. We parked across the street and waited. At exactly 2 p.m., Emma and Jake came out, carrying boxes and loading them into a moving truck. My parents were there, too, helping carry stuff. They all looked tired and angry. I watched Emma carry out a box marked kitchen stuff and felt nothing, no guilt, no sadness, just relief that this whole mess was finally over. They saw my car parked across the street. Emma glared at me through the windshield, but I just sat there, calmly watching them pack up their lives. Jake said something to her and shook his head, probably telling her not to make a scene. Robert carried out what looked like a TV. Mom was hauling trash bags full of what I assumed were clothes. None of them looked happy about this arrangement, but they were doing it. By 4 p.m., the truck was loaded and they were ready to go. Emma walked over to my car and tapped on the window. I rolled it down. "Here are your keys," she said, tossing them through the window onto my lap. "Thank you," I said politely. "I hope you're happy," she said. "I am, actually." She stared at me for a moment, then walked back to the truck. They drove away without looking back. Mr. Martinez and I went inside to check the place out. It was cleaner than I expected. They'd obviously put some effort into not leaving it a mess. The walls had a few scuff marks, and there was some normal wear and tear, but nothing major. 2 weeks later, I had the place repainted and cleaned professionally. I posted it for rent at $1,300 a month and had 3 interested tenants within a week. I picked a nice young couple, both teachers, who seemed responsible and quiet. They moved in on the first of the month and paid first month's rent plus security deposit. Suddenly, I was getting over $15,000 a year in rental income, money that would go straight toward paying off my mortgage early. Life went back to normal after that. Work, gym, friends, hobbies. I realized how much mental energy I'd been wasting on family drama. Without all that stress, I actually felt happier and more relaxed than I had in years. About 3 months later, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw Emma's wedding photos. The wedding looked modest, nice, but definitely not $80,000 nice, maybe more like $15,000 or $20,000. The venue was some community center, not a fancy hotel. The dress was pretty but simple. Everything looked fine, just not extravagant. Emma looked okay in the photos, but not exactly glowing with happiness, more like she was going through the motions. Jake looked happy enough, though. I felt nothing looking at those photos, no regret about missing it, no sadness about not being included. They'd made their choice, and I'd made mine. 3 months after that, my phone rang late one evening. Mom's name popped up. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Arya. We need to talk to you about Emma." "What about her?" "She and Jake are having some financial problems. They're looking for a new place to live, and we thought maybe you'd consider letting them move back into your grandmother's apartment." I actually laughed out loud. "Are you serious right now?" "Just temporarily, until they get back on their feet. You could think of it as helping family." "Mom, they literally called me toxic and uninvited me from their wedding. You and Robert agreed with them. What part of that makes you think I'd want to help them now?" "That was months ago. People say things when they're upset. We all miss you, honey. Funny how you only miss me when you need something. That's not fair." "No, what's not fair is you calling me after months of silence to ask me to bail Emma out again." The answer is no. Absolutely not. Where are they supposed to live? I don't know, and I don't care. They're adults. They can figure it out themselves. Arya, please. No, Mom. I'm done with all of you. You made it clear that I'm only valuable to this family when I'm writing checks. Well, the bank is closed. I hung up and immediately blocked all their numbers. I should have done that months ago. It's been over a year now since all this happened. My tenants are great, always pay on time, take good care of the place. The rental income has helped me pay down my mortgage way faster than I ever expected. I'll probably have it paid off in 5 years instead of 15. I made some new friends at work, started dating again, took a vacation to Europe last month, something I never could have afforded when I was giving Emma free housing. Sometimes people ask me if I miss my family. Honestly, no. I miss the idea of having a loving, supportive family, but that's not what I had. What I had was a group of people who only valued me for what I could give them financially. You are not treated like a personal ATM by real family. Real family doesn't make fun of you over dinner and then demand that you give them $20,000. Setting sensible boundaries doesn't mean that you're cut off from real family. I'd rather not have them. Now my life is more tranquil, but it's also quieter. Instead of funding the extravagant aspirations of others, I spend my money on things that I want. In addition to what I can do for them, I have friends that genuinely care about me as a person. Jake and Emma are capable of resolving their own housing issues. Robert and Mom can find someone else to control. Additionally, I am free to live my life as I see fit.